Hi everybody, my name is Layla. Welcome back to my channel, Learn English from Stories. Today we're going to talk about 10 ways to stop translating in your head. Let's get started. Identify objects around you in English. The first way to stop translating in your head is to identify the objects around you in your target language. So, if you're studying English, that means you look at the objects around the room. Look at the things in your life. Don't think of them in your native language first. Think of them in your target language first. So, if I look around the room and see a computer, I shouldn't think of my native language word. I should think of my target language word. Start with the items and the situations in your everyday life. For example, if I say computer in English, maybe I should say computer in Japanese. I should say not I don't know water in English, but omizu in Japanese. Start associating the words in your target language with your everyday life now. If you're studying English, that means start getting familiar with the things in your everyday life in English. Repeat phrases you hear native speakers use. Tip number 2 is to repeat the phrases that you hear native speakers use. If you're watching this channel, for example, or you're watching a TV show or a movie, listen for the way that native speakers make those phrases. If you hear a phrase you've never heard before or you hear an interesting combination of words, try to repeat them yourself. Don't just listen, try to say them yourself. If you're in a public space and it's difficult for you to do that, practice in a place where you feel more comfortable. Maybe if you have some private space to practice, just repeat them. Get your mouth used to saying the words the way that native speakers do. If you never actually say words, if you're only taking in, if you're only listening, and you're not actually producing the language, it's kind of hard to practice and to really hone your pronunciation. So, when you listen to native speakers, try to repeat after them. For example, if you're studying English, you can try to repeat after this video. You can repeat after the things I'm saying. Maybe I'm using an expression or a series of vocabulary words together the way a native speaker would. And it's a good idea to practice the ways native speakers put their words together. Try to repeat after native speakers, especially when you're looking at media. You can also do this when you're reading books. Try to read out loud interesting lines of books that you find, or something that may be difficult for you. Very nice practice. Make a situation where you can't escape into your native language. This essentially means immerse yourself. Of course, going to that country or a place where you can speak only that language is very difficult for some of you. I totally understand. But if in your life you can create a situation in your library, your room, your house, or somewhere for just an hour or maybe a day, I don't know what your schedule is like, create an environment where you have no choice but to use that language. You cannot escape, meaning you cannot go back to using your native language as a crutch. You can't use the native language at all. It forces you to use the language you're studying. If you're lucky enough to live in the country or place where people speak the language you're studying, great. But you have to go out and interact with people. You have to put yourself in a place where you have no choice but to speak. It's very hard, very scary, and very embarrassing at first. But if you take time to find places and environments that are comfortable for you, where you feel comfortable making mistakes and asking questions, it's very valuable for your learning process. This is something I did. My Japanese wasn't very good for a long time, but then I started making friends who couldn't speak English. I did this through finding hobbies. There was a hobby I had. I joined a group, a school where I could learn how to do that hobby, and everything was taught only in Japanese. The people in my class mostly spoke Japanese. We'd go out for drinks and food late at night or on weekends, and everybody spoke only Japanese. If I couldn't communicate simply in Japanese, I had no hope of keeping that friendship. It forced me to study, to think about the words they were using, and to try to learn those words and patterns. I learned vocabulary words the people around me were using and how to apply them naturally myself. That was possible because I had no escape in those situations. Try to do that, even if it's in your house. It's super helpful. Watch TV and movies in your target language without subtitles. Tip number 4 is to watch TV and movies in your target language without subtitles. Watching with subtitles can be beneficial. If I'm watching something or if you want to watch something with subtitles on, great. But sometimes I find I think too much about reading the subtitles and forget to listen. If you've seen a movie in your target language a few times with subtitles on, try turning them off. Think about the character's body language and the words they're using. You can always look up words later in a dictionary. Try to focus completely on how people use their words. Don't use subtitles. Play around with it. If there's a word difficult to hear, turn on subtitles in the native language of the movie. This helps when the actual words spoken in Japanese, or another language, appear on the screen. Seeing and hearing a word simultaneously can help. Another way to use TV and movies is to turn on closed captions in the target language, not your native language. This is 2 points in one. Watch movies without subtitles in your native language, and watch movies with closed captioning in your target language. Try these 2 things with TV and movies. Don't bring a dictionary to your lesson. Tip number 5 is don't bring a dictionary to your lesson. I understand that dictionaries, especially electronic ones on our phones, are very convenient. They're important and a great resource. However, one thing that bothers me and is detrimental is when students are practicing conversation and reach a point where they don't know the word they want to use. They know it in their native language, but not in their target language. They pull out their dictionary, say, "Just a moment," look it up on their phone, and the conversation flow stops. This isn't realistic. In a real conversation with a native speaker, you can't pull out your dictionary at the bank or elsewhere. Instead, use a different strategy. If you find a word you don't know in conversation, explain it to your partner. Maybe they know the word. When people teach me a word, I remember it better than looking it up. Resist using a dictionary in conversation. Practice describing the vocabulary word you want to use and learn how to ask the meaning of a word or vocabulary word from your partner. Use expressions like, "What's the word that means?" or "It's this thing that does." Describe characteristics or use body language. Try not to use a dictionary in conversation. Train responses to common questions. Number 6 is quick. Train responses to common questions. A very common question in English is, "Hey, how are you?" Know how to answer this question. Have a default response. "Hey, how are you?" "I'm good." If it takes you a long time to answer, practice. For example, sometimes I ask students a question, and they haven't quite gotten the idea of how to respond quickly. I say, "Hey, how are you?" And they say, "Yes." Then think and say, "I'm good." Think about default responses to common questions. How are you? I'm good. How are you? I'm okay. How are you? Not bad. Train responses to these questions. We've got beginner-level videos for example responses. Don't get stuck with these questions. Practice a few responses until they feel natural. Study with materials that don't provide a translation. The next tip is to study with materials that don't provide a translation. If you're using worksheets or a textbook with your target language and native language next to it, while useful, study your material only in your target language if possible. Simplified explanations in your target language can be better. I don't want to say only study in your target language and nothing from your native language because it can be helpful to look up a word or understand grammar in your native language. But where possible, find materials with simplified explanations in your target language. This helps you think on a simpler level about the language you're studying. Find materials in your target language, including video and TV. Consider the vocabulary level, who the media content is intended for, and the speed of the speaker. I can change the difficulty of videos based on speech rate and vocabulary. For example, English in 3 minutes uses simple vocabulary and a low rate of speech. This video is intermediate level. Consider the level of the material for written, audio, and visual content. It can be fun and helpful to think about your target language in your target language. Study phrases in addition to single vocabulary words. Yes, vocabulary is important, but it's useful to look at how a word is used in a phrase. Using a word in a phrase helps understand its nuance. For example, crazy in English can mean something different depending on the situation. It could mean a person who is mentally confused, something good or something bad. Looking only at crazy is difficult, but using it in a phrase provides more information. Study how words are used in phrases, not just single vocabulary words. Do your daily activities in English where possible. Try to do some daily activities in English. Think about your everyday life in English. For example, I'm filming a video for Learn English from Stories. I'm going to work, I'm cooking breakfast, I'm doing the laundry. What do I have to do tomorrow? Think about your daily activities in English to practice verbs. If you're comfortable, think about them in the past tense or future tense. What did I do today becomes, what am I doing today? Or, what am I going to do today? Change up tenses to practice your grammar. Describe your daily activities in your target language. Be patient. Language learning takes time and effort. Mistakes happen. Find ways to keep language study fun and exciting. Celebrate your progress. You'll stop translating in your head over time. That's all for today. Thanks for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. Check out my YouTube channel for more English learning videos. Bye.